The typical first-time homebuyer in the US is now around 40 years old, and that shift is tightly linked to a brutal mix of high prices, high rates, and credit that feels harder to access than it did a few years ago. What used to be a milestone of the late 20s or early 30s is increasingly happening closer to middle age, if it happens at all. Good evening. Let's start with a number that should make anyone under 35 go quiet for a second. In the United States, the typical first-time homebuyer is now 40 years old. 40. Not almost 30, not early 30s, 40. And if that sounds like a statistic from a future where everything got more expensive and dreams got postponed, that's because it is. For decades, buying your first home was the milestone that told you your life was starting. A place where you could paint the walls without asking permission. A place where your monthly payment built something for you instead of disappearing into someone else's mortgage. A place that felt like proof you were moving forward. Now it's starting to feel like proof you survived long enough to afford it. This isn't a rumor from social media or a random trend someone noticed on TikTok. The National Association of Realtors reports that the typical age of first-time buyers climbed to an all-time high of 40, and the share of first-time buyers dropped to a record low of 21%. That means fewer newcomers are entering the market, and they're arriving later, after more years of saving, more years of renting, and more years of watching prices climb. And it's not just about lifestyle choices or people waiting longer. It's about people being forced to wait longer. Because the door to homeownership didn't just get heavier. Someone moved it farther away. Most people don't buy a home with a suitcase of cash. They need a mortgage. And mortgages are shaped by interest rates, numbers that quietly decide whether you qualify, and if you do qualify, whether you can breathe afterward. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau documented how mortgage rates rose from about 2.65% in early 2021 to a peak around 7.79% in October 2023, with rates later easing to around 6.2% by September 2024. That change isn't just a little higher. It changes everything. The CFPB shows that on a $400,000 loan, the principal and interest payment rose from $1,612 at the low rate point to $2,977 at the peak, an increase of $9,265 or 78%. Even at the eased rate level in 2024, the payment was still $2,450, hundreds more every month than what buyers saw just a few years earlier. Now imagine you're a first-time buyer trying to qualify. Lenders don't care that rent is high. They don't care that groceries are high. They don't need care that your salary didn't magically rise at the same speed as housing. They look at the monthly payment. They look at your debt. They look at your down payment. And if the math doesn't work, the answer is simple. Come back later. But later can mean years, and those years aren't free. Here's another detail that makes this even more painful. First-time buyers are putting more down. NAR reports a median down payment of 10% for first-time buyers, matching the highest level recorded since 1989. So while the price of homes rises and the cost of borrowing rises, the upfront cash expectations also rise. And where does that down payment come from? NAR lists the top sources as personal savings, financial assets like a 401k or stocks, and gifts or loans from family and friends. Read that again, slowly. Savings, assets, family support. That's not a how-to guide, that's a filter. If you don't already have money or you don't have someone who can help you, you don't just face a challenge, you face a locked gate. And if you do have help, you might still feel like you're trying to sprint up a hill that keeps getting steeper. Let's talk about what this does to people. When the typical first-time homebuyer is 40, it means a lot of people spend their 20s and 30s paying someone else's mortgage. It means building a life, relationships, stability, maybe children, while living with a constant feeling that you roar one rent increase away from losing your footing. And there's something else, something harder to measure. The slow humiliation of doing everything right and still being told you are not ready. You got the degree, you got the job, you didn't blow your money every weekend, you tried to save. And the market still looks at you and says, not enough. At a certain point, it stops feeling like you're chasing a dream. It starts feeling like you're being trained to accept less. Descartes describes the market as a tale of two cities. Buyers with housing equity can make bigger down payments or all-cash offers, while first-time buyers struggle to enter. That line matters because it tells you who the system is working for right now. If you already owned, you might have equity, money that grows simply because you got in earlier. If you don't already own, you're trying to get approved for a loan while prices and payments push your budget to the edge. This isn't just unfair, it's structurally discouraging. The longer you're locked out, the harder it gets to catch up. And for many people, the conclusion is bleak. They don't just delay home ownership, they abandon it. When first-time buying gets delayed, the whole life timeline shifts. People stay renters longer. They move less because moving costs money. They feel less stable because leases end and landlords raise prices. And the deeper pessimism is this. Even if someone finally buys at 40, they've already lost the cheapest years to build equity. NAR warns that delayed homeownership can mean missing out on substantial equity compared to buying earlier. So yes, some people will still make it. They'll scrape together the down payment, they'll qualify, they'll sign the papers, and they'll post the photo with the keys. But for millions, the story is becoming work longer, wait longer, pay more, and celebrate later if you get there at all.